We are about to begin this third webinar of our version 11 series. Hope you were with us in the first two as well. The general highlights one, and 2 weeks ago we had one on live track and related elements of customer service tools provided by Magaya. If you missed them, you can catch the recordings in our channel. Okay, so welcome today. We are here. Hi, I'm Christian, and we have Eduardo with us, sort of. He stepped out for a moment, but he'll be back probably shortly. All right, so our speakers today. I'm the product manager of Magaya, and we also have Victoria with us. If you observe that, you might see notes from her, general technical notes, and some answers to more simple questions that you may already ask during this webinar. If you look at your GoToMeeting control panel, which is presumably on your right-hand side, you will see a questions section that you can already start typing in there. And I will take the questions in the end, or as said, Victoria may be able to already help out with some of the more general questions. Okay, so today we're going to, for those of you that maybe didn't make it to the previous webinars, very quickly give an overview why our version 11 is a big deal. Talk about the new user interface for quotations. Talk about a new workflow of how we should create quotes in Magaya. Some new features for the rates window, and how to manage your rates and what we have in the roadmap for the future. Okay, so version 11, from product to ecosystem, this is something that we don't consider just a tagline, but kind of how we think about as well how Magaya software has evolved in the past 17 years. From one monolithic system that was basically just a desktop software to a network of smaller interconnected features and apps, which is very much in step with where the software industry has been going as a whole. And also we have been building new apps because of this. So we have the Binder app for attachments in version 11. We have the new Live Track app, which you've seen in previous webinars. And we have something that will really hopefully help meet all our customers' expectations, meaning we will provide to you tools that you can build little extensions to your Magaya system to serve your customers better. So finally, the main core feature in Magaya that changed in version 11, or the biggest changes in Magaya Explorer, were the quotations and rates. So let's start with the quotation. So what we did with the freight quotation in Magaya version 11. The new user interface, if we look at the old one, it looked something like this. This is, if some of you that still have older versions of Magaya, this is what your cargo quotation would look like. You have your general tab with a few fields, and to enter the commodities that you're quoting to move, you would have to go to the third tab, then come back to the second routing tab to enter the origin, destination, etc., and then enter charges in the fourth tab. So this was something that we wanted to streamline and improve, and we wanted to add new fields to support some of the new features that we've been building for rates. So what we ended up doing with our new quote looks like this. Okay, so the first thing that you will notice is that we have a new concept called lead. So this is our first step towards a more CRM-like system. We are adding CRM features little by little. I'll touch upon them later in the roadmap part as well. So the concept of lead here is that I can just start typing in anyone that I do not have as a customer. As soon as I type a character that's not recognized, the system will realize that this is not a customer. So here I will have, for example, Fernando, and I can just type in some data about them right here in a quote interface as I'm on the phone with them or receiving an email from them. So this person will not be saved in a system as a customer unless they accept this quote. So we're going to a long way to shorten your customer list, because it was previously possible only to quote to existing entities already in your customer list. So then the next thing, some fields that presumably will always be auto-filled, like the date would be today's date, the number auto-generates, your payment terms, your company name, your employee name, you can now hide them, so that keeps the interface a little simpler. Similar, you will notice in Magaya 11 similar hide and show options in different places, just in an effort to keep the interface a little more clean for you. And then finally, you see that we got rid of the commodities tab. We brought the commodities to the front, to the first general tab here. So now it's very easy to just type in what you need here. And just click add, and your containers or your pieces will be added right here. And then you proceed in a more natural flow. So now what you notice on the routing tab is many more fields. So basically what we did here is that the quotation now syncs up perfectly with bookings and shipments. So you shouldn't have that happen anymore, where you create a quote, then convert it into a booking or a shipment, and still have fields to fill in because they didn't transfer over from the quote because they weren't filled there. So here, your port of loading, port of unloading, the shipper consignee data, mode of transportation, service type, even the carrier, all available on the quote. And then you get to the charges tab as before, and you enter your charges, finalizing the quote. So we hope that this is something that will make it much quicker and easier for you to quote your customers. So I can do one real quick here. Let's quote. All right, I have my mode of transportation. From Miami to, let's say, Santos, Brazil. I have my charges already automatically generating. Let me add an ocean freight charge as well and populate it. Oh, it's a different type of container, that's why. All right. Piece for now. And the container is quoted. What you notice in the background now are the new quotation document templates. Okay, so we added quite a few. If you look in the templates list, we created several of them for many scenarios. So you have your regular, just very generic quotation. Then you have 4 different types for full container quotes. So if it's an FCL, you will get a container listing, as you can see in the background here. Then you have a port-to-port versus door-to-door quotes. So the ones that say port, they only list the origin and destination, the loading and unloading ports, whereas the door-to-door quotes give you full addresses of the pickup and final delivery for doors. Then you have a multi-page quote. So the multi-page quote, which we have open right here, as you can see, we included on the second page already terms and conditions. Well, this is dummy text, so make sure that you change this before you start using the multi-page versions. The logo, as a reminder, is automatically populated on all Magaya documents. So you just go to your company settings, hit browse, and you upload your company logo, and all the new documents will already have it built in. So I just changed the logo here real quick, and now it's right here. So if we want to go ahead and add our own terms and conditions, for example, so let me pick this multi-page document. I'll create a quick copy from it just to show that part. Okay, so the document designer opens, and again, here you can resize your logo as we already showed in one of our previous webinars if the size doesn't seem to fit or the shape. But if you click on the second page, you'll be able to select your text, and I have here just a dummy Word document, not this one, but let's say this one, with terms and conditions, and I can just come here and paste it. All right, there we go. Now, of course, I would now take some time to make it actually nice, etc. But the next step would just to be save it, give it a unique name, and if I open it again, now my template is saved here. I didn't give it a beautiful name, so it generated this techie looking one, but you can rename the document as well. So now my terms and conditions are actually those of my own company. Okay, so I created this quick quotation, and if I now proceed, if I go and look in my customers list at the moment, so Fernando Alvarez is not there because it's just a lead. But as soon as I create the next step, so let's say I go ahead and create a booking from this quote. All right, and as I said earlier, your routing will now match perfectly. Your commodities will come over because we have added these fields in the quote. Your general tab is all filled in, so I don't even have to really focus on this booking. If we go back to our customers list, we see now Fernando Alvarez was saved as a customer because the quote was accepted. They're no longer a lead. Okay, so that concludes the simple features that we added to the quote. Hopefully it makes it more pleasant for you to use. What comes next is the actual new workflow of creating the quotes. Okay, and again, just as a reminder, I encourage you to type in questions as we go. In your GoToMeeting control panel, there should be a questions area, and I will take questions in the end, unless they are more technical in nature. In that case, Victoria will be typing some answers in the chat window. Okay, so how we actually want to help you create those quotes in a more streamlined way, because what I just did was just very simple, very manual. Opened the new quote, entered everything from scratch. We want to provide more automation for you. Okay, so better way to create those quotes would be the query rates tool that we have. We have had it since a few years back, but we have made some major improvements in that tool. Just to name a few, and I will show as well, you can choose whether to stick with a simple query or more common types of quotes that you already know, or you can go advanced that will open really many more dials that you can turn and get to a more detailed answer. Okay, then we can now have in one view both your cost and sale rates. I will demonstrate that as well. So as you're quoting to a customer or a prospect, you will immediately see if you have your income and cost rates both entered, you will immediately see what your profit will be before you even generate the quote. And we have dialed the algorithms to give you the more exact matches first to your search criteria, and then as you find more and more detailed ones, you can click find more results, and the system will do that for you instead of giving you thousands of results in the beginning. We will demo that as well. Okay, so let's go into the system here. And by the way, we have Eduardo with us.
Just joining.
All right. Hi, Eduardo. He's been showing the new quotes and rates features to customers already, and so far feedback's been good. So let me get right into it and start with a simple quote. Okay, so you see a third option now in the quotations add button, which is add the quotation from a rate query. So this opens the new query rates window, and let me go through just a very quick example. Imagine this is my customer that I already know. They want to ship a container from Miami to Rio de Janeiro. They want a 40-foot high cube. Let's see what we have. Okay, we're finding a couple of options. We're quoting them the cheaper we have. Okay, and adding the cost. You see that you immediately see your own profit down here. You see the find more button here indicates that there might be more general results. For example, a general rate for Brazil, etc. Okay, let's create this quote. As you can see, I actually have to add nothing. Everything was pulled. The container, the 40-foot high cube was pulled from the tool. The routing information is complete. The charges are here. So what's left to do really is just click OK here. I can close or leave this one open, and the quote is right here. 1 40-foot high cube for John customer. Let me click this email button here. Pick this template and send it out. So this final move that I made to send the tracking email to the customer is something that as you probably know, we can set up automatically, and we showed that extensively in the previous webinar. So this click could have been avoided, and also the email templates themselves could be designed to look much nicer than this generic one that I used here. So if we go to my email, let me refresh this. Let's see if it gets here. All right, looks like the email is loading. We'll check back in a couple of seconds. So this was an example of the simple quote. Now, let's look back here. As you can see at the top of the query rates, there is an advanced button. So this opens a screen much more elaborate. So let's say I'm now in this scenario on a phone with a new customer. So I'll just clear all these fields. Customer, let's say their name is someone that I don't have in the system already. Okay, so they are a lead at this point.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an attendee in listen-only mode.
All right, sorry for the technical difficulties. So they're on the phone with me and they say they want to ship something from Italy to Montreal. Okay, so I can start entering data as they say. All right, port of unloading Montreal, but if they don't give me a place of receipt or port of loading, they just give me a country. Well, that's not a problem. We can just say, let's go to the advanced view and put in the country here. Okay, and as you can see, I can switch between the simple and advanced, and everything that I've already entered will be saved here. So my port of unloading Montreal, for example, is already here. Okay, so I'm asking, so what is it that you're shipping? Okay, they are shipping 20 pallets of wine, for example. Do you have any volume, weight, anything like that? Okay, it's 30 cubic meters. All right, great. So let's see what we have. I can start hitting the query button as soon as I have something and see if I get any results. Okay, so it looks like I have a generic, and by the way, those of you that have big screens, this should actually be dragged like this so you can use all these columns, and you can add even more, so you can sort this and filter this by a lot of these columns. Okay, so it looks like I have MSC offering me, well, this customer, actually, this is my sale rate, 5,400. That seems a little expensive. They say, okay, can we do something better? Okay, so let's say 30 cubic meters. Okay, let's say, can you put it in a container maybe? All right, let's try. So if we do containerized and say this would go into a 40 height cube, let's see what we get then. Okay, let's query again. All right, looks like getting 2 rates now. Also, I have here one from Maersk offering slightly more expensive. Okay, if they want, we can query for air, but let's say for this one, it seems like they're satisfied. Okay, so I can ask, where from Italy are you looking to do this in a more exact way? Because these are just my general rates from Italy as a country that I've entered as a backup, that I know that I have Italy here. But if I hit the find more button, okay, it looks like at this moment I'm not finding things. Okay, so let me see if I have specific ports of loading defined from Italy. Okay. All right, if I query these, it looks like I have more options. And if I go by the amount, looks like I can offer to my customer something much cheaper here. Okay, so this one, probably based on the transit time, which is a column that you can add here, looks like this company offers a better rate than the other one. Finally, what the customer is asking me is, okay, these are US dollar rates. Do you have anything in euros for me, for example? I can just switch this query, a new feature that we have. All right, these are my euro rates. The carriers actually do offer both rates for me. The cheapest I have here is 3,600. She's very happy with that one in euros. She calculates a little bit. Okay, that is a better exchange rate for me. And again, I can just go ahead and create the quote from here. Okay, at this point, I would probably ask, hey, can I have your email address so that I can, shoot this over to you real quick. I'll make sure that the routing information is correct. The charge did populate. Click OK, close or move this window, and my quote is created. And again, I can see that my terms and conditions are here. I can email this, or the email could be sent automatically. So let me just pick this template for now, attach a PDF, and send out this email. So there are many, many more options here in this advanced query. We could, keep playing with this for a long time. I don't want to take too much time today in this webinar, but just to touch upon a few country-based rates. You saw that you can have country or port of loading, or actually for door-to-door service types, place of receipt and place of delivery even. Okay, you can have hazardous as a checkbox, which will only display rates that apply to hazardous cargo. For the first time, we have one query window for both carrier rates, sales rates, and all of them. Mode of transportation, you can include carrier now also on sales rates. So because this is something we know that different carriers give you sometimes different rates, and you want to translate that over to your customer as well. All right, so let me clear this query. Let's see if the email has arrived. Looks like I got disconnected from my email. All right, here it is opening again. And yes, so there's my quotation attached as a PDF. One 40-foot high cube. And the tracking link in an email or in a mobile friendly, or in a browser or in a mobile friendly view here as well.
Christian, you can remind our customers that tracking is dynamic. It means that we'll change the status and as the operation progresses for the customer, without having to receive a new email. So you can put something in the template that says you can always go back to this link, so you see the advancement of the operation. It's a dynamic link, so it gets updated automatically as the operation progresses for the customer.
Absolutely. So yes, thank you for reminding that, Eduardo. This is something that is very important. This is not a one-time snapshot like the PDF attached to the email was. This is a living tracking page that gets updated as the status of this document, this quotation, this booking, later a shipment or a warehouse receipt changes. The customer can come back here to check for new events. All right, so in terms of the query rates tool, this is something that we've been working on for a while and we will keep working on. So we hope that you try it out, give it a go and give us feedback. We will keep improving it. Now, when it comes to the rate window itself, notice I haven't actually showed it yet. We have plenty of new features on the actual rate record that enable all of this. Okay, so we've added a currency. That's been a very requested feature. You can now have rate tables in multiple currencies. We have added a carrier on the customer rates. Before it was impossible. We've added different service levels, door to door, port to port, and all the possible combinations on one single rate. So before, to actually have Magaya system automate for you a door-to-door shipment, you needed 3 separate rates for those 3 legs, and it was just a lot of data entry. Now you can specify that on a single rate record. We have country-specific rates, which is also huge. So you don't even have to specify ports anymore. If you have one rate for a whole country or a region that in the system you choose to define as country, you can enter rates for that. And we have hazardous rates now as a new feature as well. Okay, so let's take a look. This is what the rate screen looked like before, and now in Magaya, close this query window. This is the rate screen. Okay, so you see new fields like service type, which are related to these 4 ports here: place of receipt, port of loading, port of unloading, place of delivery. You see the apply to country, which activates country instead of the port of loading. You see carrier, currency. A new field is frequency, because some carriers give you better rates if you ship with them on a certain schedule. So that's why we have put the frequency rate here, frequency field here, and you saw it on the quotation as well. So you can make quote similarly to your customers. We have the hazardous checkbox, and the apply by part is the same as it was on rates before. Okay, so let's see the next feature. Was how the automation in the automating charges in Magaya can work. Okay, so the way of setting up your automated charges was and still is a little manual if you choose to go from the item or from the customer. But now the rate itself can put the charge on your transaction. So let's say I have here under my carrier rates, or let's go to the standard client rates here, a charge which is a security surcharge. For Maersk from any port in the US to any port in Brazil. So this is a good generic example of how it could be something that's applied to country or sometimes a specific carrier. So this port, this rate, if you check this box here, automatically create charge with this rate, will add this item to the transaction. So if we go and look at, for example, an existing quote that I already created so that I wouldn't have to do this again from United States to Brazil. The previous one here, for example, Miami and Rio de Janeiro applies. And if I look in the charges, I left it here for me to regenerate. These security charges were added because of the rates. They were not added because of general security surcharge cost set for this line or for this customer, because we wanted it to only apply if the port of loading is in the US and the port of unloading is in Brazil. Okay, so if we can verify this, if we go here and check, there is no automatic creation enabled on the item level. We could go on the carrier and check that too, but I hope you believe me. So this is basically a very, very flexible way to enter charges automatically to quotation, shipments, bookings, only when the rate kicks in. So you don't have to create zero value charges to all shipments and only give them value when the rate applies. Okay, so this is something that might be, a little technical for those of you that haven't used these features before, but for those of you that have, this might click and you might say, oh my God, finally, because this is something that that we've received a lot of feedback about as well, that the automated generation of charges should be somewhat more flexible. All right, then let's do a little poll here because I've been mentioning a couple times already, some of you this and that. Let's actually ask you what brought you to this webinar today. So I'm launching this poll. We have a few options just to get to know the audience a little better. So question is, what were you looking to get out of this webinar? And you have a multiple choice poll here. Starting from the top, if you haven't used Magaya's rate management system before, but you would maybe like to, and you came to this webinar to check out what we have to offer, and that would be your checkbox. The second one, the same for quotes. If you haven't used quotes in Magaya, but are possibly interested. The third one, if you already are using quotes and rates in Magaya, or one of them, and you just wanted to see what we have in this new version. And also the last one, if you really just wanted to see what we have to offer. Okay, so we have more than half of you already voted. I'll keep this open for a couple more seconds. All right, so let me close this poll. And let's see. All right, a pretty even distribution, which is great. So we have a few experienced users of these features, a few new users, or hopeful users. And so let's see if we can gauge your interest in this webinar, so that you'll maybe start using quotes and rates to the benefit of your company. Okay, so let's get back to the presentation. Rate management. So this is a big one. This is probably the hurdle for most of you who have at some point considered using rates in Magaya but haven't taken the leap. It's like, how do I manage this rate table of thousands of records? How do I make the rates more flexible? Because even though we provide many fields there might be special cases, etc., etc. So let's start with how you can customize your rates. So this applies to rates and tariffs actually similarly in Magaya. So just to as a quick refresher, rates apply to freight type of charges, and tariffs apply to charges that are not necessarily freight, that are not tied to origin and destination. Okay, so what you can do on both rates and tariffs is you can actually customize the logic of when these rates should apply using JavaScript code with our programmer's help, or if you have in-house knowledge, to a pretty detailed level. For example, something very quick. If I go and add a test item to this same quotation here, let me say I add a new charge that we created the other day here. It's called test height based surcharge. Okay, so the price comes up to 25. Okay, so why is it 25? 25 because the height of this cargo is more than 2 meters. So I was talking the other day with a customer that was looking for a more specific formula, and Magaya just wasn't, we had volume based calculations, but there was nothing that we could do height based. So you could go in, and I'm going to show you the code, of course. I'm not expecting that we all write this, but with a few lines like this on the item itself, that our developers in the implementation department can help you write. This code looks and puts one price of this surcharge if the height of the item is below certain number, and the other charge if it's above. So something very simple like that, and at the same time can be difficult if the software isn't flexible enough, because these can be very, very individual needs to you and your carriers that might request something like that. Okay, so this is one example how you can customize further the rates and tariffs that we have in Magaya. The other one is importing. Okay, so if we look at the rate tables, mine is very short because this is just a demo database, but imagine from a normal ocean carrier you would probably have, and if you have a pretty big operation, you support multiple countries and many ports, you will have hundreds of lines here. Okay, so how do I manage it when the carrier sends me an update? Okay, well, dear Magaya, please have a CSV import. So we made a CSV import already about a year ago for the rates, but the problem with those is that when we start asking for examples from different carriers, all of their rate tables are in different format. So we try to make the rate table import as generic as possible, so you can work in Excel taking your carrier's table and mapping it to Magaya's import format and then importing that. Okay, so let's do a quick example. So what I would like to start with is actually export, because that's how you get the perfect import format. So let me apply a quick filter. Let's say I'm getting new rates from MSC. So let's do carrier MSC. I have these 4. Okay, and when I say 4, by the way, when it comes to containerized rates, if I open this side panel here, sorry, this rate here, you will see that each of these records for the containerized rates actually contains 3 different container types. So essentially, it is one record containing 3 rates. So your carrier might send it to you in 3 lines, and this is how Magaya will actually export and import it. Okay, so let me just export it to a CSV file. Let's call it MSC rates list. And it's exported. Okay, so now if I open this file in Excel, see all files, and okay, so this is, let me zoom this a little, it's probably hard to see. So this is how it comes out of Magaya, and this is a very good point to start now taking your carrier's rate file and trying to see how they could be matched. Okay, so a few things to notice. Everything that you see here is written the way it is in your Magaya database, and if you import it, it has to be that particular way. For example, if I tried to import rates from carrier just MSC, it wouldn't recognize. It would give me an error saying this carrier doesn't exist. I need the carrier to be named the same way it's named in Magaya. The same applies for the charge, for the port codes, for the country codes, for the currency codes, and the modes of transportation as well. Another thing to notice, this creation date I do not have to import because the system will set it as today's date anyway. So another thing to notice is the date formats. So I don't want to get an error, so I will actually format these because my Excel is using whatever format it prefers. So if I want this to be importable, our documentation mentions that as well in the knowledge base, by the way, what the formats have to be, but I'll change this year to not get an error. And here is where the logic really comes, okay? So the rate per container type, or the rates for LCL right here. So if it's more than 5 cubic meters, it's this. If it's more than 10, it's this, etc. So let's say I'll just do something very generic that MSC gave me just to keep this webinar short, just a general 10% increase. I'm not going to, massage these numbers manually or do any more complicated formula. So I'll just say, let's raise these all 10%. Okay, and here we go. All right, so I've raised all these rates 10%. And by the way, I don't have to export all these columns, but I wanted to, have the full file. This is, up to you. Not all the columns, most of the columns actually aren't mandatory when importing either. And here what I'll do is I'll keep the contract number from this carrier the same, but let's say that this was a Q3 2018 amendment. So I'll add an amendment number here. Okay, all right, so let me save this. This is another important thing. One thing is the date formats, and the other thing is the file format. It needs to be Windows CSV. Okay, let me rename this to MSC rates list import and save this. All right, so importing this file through the wizard that we have, I'll select that it has a header and I'll find the file from here. Again, we have a detailed instruction on how to do this in our knowledge base, but just to show you that it is somewhat manageable, I wanted to do it live. I hope it's not too boring for those of you that don't deeply love Excel like myself. All right, so here, if you've already done it at least once, the columns will already match, and it'll be very easy to re-import the file that you started exporting from Magaya. That was the point. That's why I did the export first, because then the import becomes extremely easy. Okay, it said that these 4 are the items that I'm proposing to import. If I open this, I see that these are my new rates. Okay. If I had, by the way, any errors, it would give me a list that I can download on this previous page. These are the rates that it generated. These are the rates that are about to be set as expired, because I did say that they're active from today's date, not the date in the future. So it found that there are already identical rates and it will set those as expired. If I import future rates, let's say my carrier's new contract goes into effect on November 1st, then I could have entered that in the import file as well. All right, and let me save them in the database. And I have the 4 new rates entered and the 4 old rates set as expired. Okay, so this was, again, a very simplified scenario, but probably the best way of managing them, because, maybe as we have a couple of questions to ask ourselves, and one of those, how often do I get these rate updates from my carriers? If you get them every few months, this is probably the recommended way to go, because you can map their Excel file with Magaya format and have it done pretty easily in the end. Also, really, what's my transaction volume? If you only have, if you don't have a very high volume of shipments or quotes, maybe using rates is not worth it. Maybe just the quotes interface will do just fine. How much automation do you need? Do you want the surcharges to pop up intelligently based on the carrier and ports combination, or the country combination, like I demonstrated the security example, etc. Also, to notice the difference between rates and tariffs. This is something we have a knowledge base article about as well, when to use which. And these are basically the considerations that I wanted to leave you with in the end of this webinar. Quick update on how we are doing with version 11. This is as of today. We have 434 customers on it already. That's pretty impressive. And quickly, Eduardo, did you want to also talk a little bit about the value you've seen out there on the field in quotes and rates?
Absolutely. Well, basically, what we're trying to do, guys, is give your sales representative or customer service representative an ability to quote quickly. And what Christian was showing about the country of origin, specific ports, multiple carriers, multiple mode of transportation, and the query rate, it gives you the ability, or gives your representative the ability to respond quicker to the customer. Sometimes, your customers does not have all the information. They just know that they want to move a cargo from Italy to Canada. So they want to know if you covered that route. So you can quickly reply, answer to that question. Then, the representative can go further and then provide, more information. I mean, it's going to be containerized. It's going to be less than container load. So we build it in a way that they can go from the general to the particular details of what the customer is looking for. And they have a lot of information on there. So because the customer can make a decision based on what you provide, the information you provide, which could be transit times, which could be origin ports, of course, what would be more cost efficient for them, ocean or air. So all that, before even presenting the quote, the representative will have it at hand and will provide an answer really quick to your customer. So that's what we had in mind. And of course, all the carrier and customer rates revamp had this in mind. So when you actually use them, they populate accordingly to what your expectations. That's what I want to say in the quote, at the quote point. We have several questions here. For example, how can we? I have one that I have in front of me right now. How could the users of the ocean carriers contracts we use? Well, you can upload the contracts numbers the same way when you imported rates. there's a tab that includes the contract.
I actually forgot to show it. I did it.
Right.
Because you noticed if I put in the import file, there's my my carrier contract with MSC, and you see just by importing rates and putting in that one column there, what is the new amendment number and what the contract number was, that it tied it together. So I'm looking at this contract, and these were the initial rates that are now expired. And the import that I just did is the Q3 2018 import, and these are the rates there. So the import, or from here manually, you could cover it as well.
So you can do it manually or through the import of the carrier rates. It will also populate the contract window. Now we also have a question about the expiration of the rates, and we have that too. Is on the second tab of the rates. You can open a really quick question. Your contract, you have the expiration, the effective date. The system will expire accordingly to that date. We can also do futures, by the way. So the rate that you was offered by your carrier is going to be effective in, let's say, 3 months. You can put that effective date, and the system will use it accordingly when that date comes in the calendar, of course. What are the questions we have here? We have a question, Christian. This question is rhetorical. It's for you. So it's going to be my question to you as well. Where someone asked, how can we do a drayage, for example, a dryer service, a trucking service into a ocean quotation, right? So it will be, my answer will be to put as other charges. There's a related charges that is not related to the origin and the destination. And those other charges show, if you can show them right there on the query rate as well. And they will be included in the quotation.
Yes, so let me go to the quotes.
You can query the rate, and then see there's a field for other charges right there.
So this is one way, yes. So you can pick multiple of these other charges to also show up. And then when you select them in the results and create the quote, they will be carried over to the quote. Another interesting feature that we actually added is that on ocean specifically, you can now add ground freight charges to the charges here. So if you go and look, this is new. In version 11, the income and expense charge menu has one more option specifically for the mode of transportation ocean. So you can add a ground freight charge, an expense or income to an ocean quote, ocean booking, or ocean shipment. And if you had that rate and automatic generation set up, it will pull them both. So you don't necessarily have to anymore have an income charge specific, for ground, for trucking. Let's say if it's long haul, you want to put a ground rate from Denver to Miami, it can now actually work in version 11. We added that. It's not there yet for air, but for ocean, the option is added.
Awesome.
All right. I had this one more slide to show or just quickly mention what we wanted to add in the next versions. We already did, actually. It's in version 11.1, which we have internally already almost ready to release. We added the quotes and bookings to jobs. So those of you that use Magaya supply chain have seen jobs for years. They're kind of like a project where you can collect different types of different transactions of the same major operation. So now they're also in cargo system.
It's like a control tower, like a dashboard where you can consolidate the view of operation that goes through a lot of phases, so.
Exactly, and you can see the overall profitability of a job. So now you see here these different types of operations that belong to this job number. In version 11.1, they will have quotes here. And so you can manage if this quote then, or multiple quotes under this job get accepted, what shipments come out of here, what pickup orders, what warehouse receipts, and what are all the items and all the charges. You can manage all of this in jobs and including in Magaya cargo system from version 11.1.
Yep.
jobs are already in cargo system in 11.0, but they will not include quotations yet. So that is one exciting thing for the future. Many of you have asked that, especially in countries where, let's say there's like kind of like a government required master number that needs to be the same throughout the different types of operation, that it's coming in 11.1. And yes, continued improvements to quotes and rates based on your feedback and requests, and more, more CRM-like features like better dashboards, better reporting. Those are some of the things that we're working on. All right, so let's jump back to questions.
Okay, this is something that I want to clarify, because some customers asking here if their subscription allow them to enjoy this feature of version 11. Yes, I mean, as
Yes.
part of your service, we provide you with new versions every time that we come out with them, and no additional cost. So yes, it's included in your service, and you just have to, if your system is hosted in our cloud, you can call tech support and they will do it for you. If you're hosting it on premises, well, your IT guy knows what to do. If not, you can give us a quick call, and we will gladly show him how to do that.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, we covered some of the questions by text here.
By the way, if we don't make it to answer all the questions, we will get back by email to those who we didn't.
Okay, I have a question
get
here,
to
Christian.
reply.
How can I make the system consider ton or volume for LCL cargo when we calculate the charges? When you define the rate, where you have to define how do you want that rate to
Yes.
to work or to apply. So you basically this at the beginning when you're setting up the rate.
Let me see if I have a couple here that is not containerized, like this one, for example. This one here I have by volume. I did it by cubic meter, but you can go, if you said ton, for example, weight. Here you go,
And then you have
tons right here, and then you would enter your ranges, like from what to what, or your unit.
The unit.
Yeah.
This is something that we can make a quick stop here, because some of our customers I don't think know that they can do this. Basically, Magaya, when the rate can be per unit or per range, means that either the rate is calculated per ton, for example, in this case, or per a flags or a fixed amount per a range of those tons. For example, from 1 to 100 tons, we're always going to charge $500. So if we do 5 tons, 50 tons, up to 100, we're going to charge 500.
Yeah.
Okay, no matter what. Whereas if we do by unit, I mean, we actually calculate it by each ton. We give it a rate or a price. Yep. Okay, so that's something that you might consider as well.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Some people is asking to show specific processes. We can send them links on how to do this using our knowledge base.
That's actually a very good one. Knowledge.magaya.com, and if I just go to the home page, it should probably be one of the most recent ones for me. Not yet. Okay. So if you go to the top of the knowledge base, version 11, new features, and if you scroll, you will see quotes and rates right here, and you will have a bunch of articles about it. And if you click on the articles, you see links leading to more articles, etc. So there's a lot of documentation that we have about this online.
Okay, we have one more question here. Can you increase rates from carrier by TEU? Yes. I mean, basically, if you define the buying rate as per container, and then you can mark it up on the customer side, on the selling side, and you can do it by the whole container. It could be a percentage, or it could be a flat fee. So yes, you can do that, and based on your buying rate, so you don't never go below that. Breaking point.
Yeah, there were many features under the rate management. I kind of showed the one that tends to be most asked for but least used, which was the CSV import. But we have built-in features as well, where I'm here in the client rates, for example, I can start a wizard that says generate multiple of them based on some carrier rates, and here you have where you can modify, increase by a value or a percentage the value of the markup from your carrier rate, for example.
Okay. Okay, we have more questions, but are a little bit more
Yeah.
complex to quickly tackle them now. We can, I think we can put it together. We want to take those, we're recording the questions, and we're gonna contact each customer separately, send them, a response on this, either a knowledge base article or, it's a feature that maybe we still don't have, we're working on it, or we'll take it in and then we put it to consideration as a to do in our.
Yes, a couple of questions are about
pipeline.
like related charges or a batch of charges that carriers have, and because I did show in my quick demos only like a single charge, like an all-in, but the quick answer is yes, that you can have like, let's say if a carrier has an ocean freight and then a bunker and security separately, or like some kind of terminal loading fees, all of those can be set up as rates under that carrier and can be set up to automatically generate. And if you want them to be displayed like that in that structure on the income side, like to the customer, they can, or you can choose to have an all-in for sales and only keep your costs itemized by what the carrier will charge you. So Magaya does support that.
Okay, well, last question here. Is there a way to browse all articles on the knowledge base? Well, if someone says, I want to see them all, we have a bunch of them. My suggestion is that if you want to see which apply to your purposes, I mean, you can enter on the search field your industry, or you can search your type of company. For example, if you say freight forwarder, it will come, you have a list of all related articles for freight forwarders. You have like a getting started. So that's a way to actually see what applies to you. So also there is a selection there which says, accounting, communication, the specific product that you have, cargo systems, supply chain. So there's ways to do it. My advice is that you start with the getting started articles, because those has hyperlinks to the all related articles. So you can start there and then start branching out.
That is kind of the way it was built. We have I want to say close to 1,000 articles. So to browse them all would just be really a lot. So yeah, to search and then to find like the article about that topic that starts with getting started, that will branch out to others. Or if you want to read like a more structured manual, we do have still these operations manuals down here. They might not be as up to date as some of the newer articles because they are PDFs, but they go maybe in a more structured way. But in general, the search and then branching out from articles. All right. Okay. So we are a few minutes over. I think it's good to cut it here. You will receive a follow-up email with also the link to recording of this webinar, so you can review it, pause it, and the questions we didn't get to, we will eventually be able to reply by email. I won't promise it by tomorrow, but we will get back to everybody that we didn't answer, and hope to see all of you on version 11 soon and using these new features of Magaya.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.